Okay, guys, I think let's get started because we've had people waiting for quite a while. So, firstly, welcome everybody. Sorry about the late start. Who's talking in the background? Sorry about the late start, but obviously this is new for all of us. And I've messed up a few of these Zoom webinars the last couple of weeks, but I'm slowly getting the hang of it. I think everybody else is getting the hang of it. I think it's amazing that, you know, I never heard of Zoom until about a month ago. Now I've done at least about 20, 30 of them already. So it's going to be the new way of communicating and, you know, I think the way business is going to be done. All right, so firstly, we are recording this and we are going to put this one and the one we did about 2 weeks ago. It's going to be on YouTube under Twincare. So, you know, I came up with this idea because there's a lot of webinars and everybody's having more or less the same discussion. You know, what are we going to do about landlords? What are we going to do
about Did you come up with this idea, Steph?
Sorry? Oh, was it your idea,
Did you come up with this idea?
I know it was Terence's idea. We're very jealous of ideas at Twincare. So well done, Terence, your idea. And it is Paul's idea to come up with old school, cool school. So other than that, well, it was, all right, it wasn't my idea, whatever. So, you know, I think the idea is to try and keep this light, have a discussion about the industry, you know, try and motivate each other, try and get a sense of, you know, what the industry is about and where it's going to go. We are going to finish off with a little bit more of a serious discussion. I think since we put this webinar together, there's been a few developments, and I think we need to touch on those. I think the whole industry is very concerned, especially in light of the announcements that were made by government the last week or so. But I'd like to start off with keeping this light and keeping it fun and keeping it focused. So if everybody can just start off by introducing themselves, I think let's just start off with you, Andrea. You can just tell us who you are and a little bit about yourself quickly.
Okay, so hi guys, my name's Andrea. I'm the general manager of Twincare. I've been with Twincare now for 10 years this year, it's my anniversary, and started off as a sales consultant and yeah, worked my way through the company.
Okay, Gerald. I think most of you know introduction, but I know you don't want to miss any opportunity to talk about yourself, so go ahead.
I was 17, so now I'm 27. It's been a long 10 years. Love my industry, love everything about it, love the people and friends and partnerships and all sorts of different things, which we'll talk about as time goes on. And Steve talking about, I remember my 50th, I had a Playboy party. And the next weekend in the Hairdressing Journal, I saw Steve in his smoking jacket, the Playboy party man, Hugh Hefner and all that. So Terenzo, I feel for you because he steals all our bloody ideas.
Terence, do you want to move on to you?
Yes. I started hairdressing in 1989. It sounds like such a long time ago. And started Terenzo in 1993. And yeah, I mean, I've had so much fun. And I mean, Stav, even with the Redken those days, with you still involved, it was just the most amazing times. And all the business weekend away, all the seminars, the hairstylist of the year, we had so much fun. And I think that's one thing that sticks with me is the fun and the passion and the energy around it. And I think as the years went by, it was more difficult to hold on to some of those things because it became more tough. But I suppose we'll chat about this later.
Yeah. Paul?
As a Paul Fox, Paul James Hairdressing. Been in the hair industry since 1988 when God was a wee boy. Yeah, it's been a journey of note. The biggest blessing for me in the hairdressing industry has been the amount of people that we've got to touch. I don't mean physically, I mean educationally. Keep it tidy, guys. But, you know, to impart your knowledge on people and allow them to go into the world and then, shut up, Foxy, sorry, that's my bird. Not my real bird, it's a cockatoo. I knew a girl that didn't mind a cockatoo. So anyway, I've been in the industry a long time, and we've got to touch on a lot of stuff with regards to education, but we've managed to empower people to go out and create and be their own persons, have their own businesses, and do well in life. And that's my big up.
All right, Terry, you're on.
Okay, guys, goes without saying who this is. I've been around longer than some of you have been around before you were born. Started hairdressing in '69, been in the game for over 50 years, been cutting hair for over 50 years. Been involved with all you guys on the webinar this morning. I'm proud to be part of this team, very proud to have been invited to be one of the 5 icons that are speaking this morning. If I had to start telling you about who, where, and what I came from, and where I come from, where I've been, and what I've done, most of you already know. So we'd be here all morning. But during the course of the morning, while we're on the webinar, I'll throw a few things in. Currently, I'm probably just as concerned as all of you are. At the ripe old age of 70, one of my biggest problems was not being as involved financially with my business. And that, I think, has been one of my biggest mistakes, but so be it. Let's just hang in there and see what this all brings us after closure. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. So I'm going to start off very quickly by just telling you my experiences in hairdressing. And my first memory of hairdressing started when I must have been about 14, 15. A lot of you might know that I grew up in Ladysmith, which is a very conservative little town in Natal. And I was in my 14, 15 years old in the 70s. So that's in the good old days when music used to take 2 or 3 years to get to South Africa. And I was a big fan of David Bowie. So being in this little conservative town, I was like a kid that had all the records and, I ran a couple of discos and whatever. So I decided I wanted to have a haircut like David Bowie. And there were only barbers in Ladysmith in those days. So I thought, look, I've got to go to the hairdresser. They're a little bit more technically skilled. And I remember going into the hairdresser with a picture of David Bowie. And firstly, being a man walking to hairdressing salon in those days was quite a different experience. And I remember I walked out with what is a variation of that Cook hairstyle they used to do to ladies in the 70s, with I didn't have the purple hair, but that sort of look. And then my next memory was actually when I was at university in Durban, walking to Terry Scott's salon. And I remember the feeling I got in those days. And what has really stayed with me in hairdressing is just how much of a vibe the industry is. And I think Terry in those days had some of the biggest names in hairdressing. I don't know, Gerald, were you working from those days? I can't remember. This is the early 80s or somewhere around there.
I was around.
Yeah. And I remember Sharon used to do my hair. And I used to walk in there, all these trendy, weird looking people. And there was this little student, wanting to be part of the energy. And then in 1991, I landed up getting an interview with Twincare as a sales rep. And I remember walking in and I just knew this was a job for me. I walked out of there shaking and I just wanted that job. So I started off in sales and, I got to know all you criminals. And I got a little story about all of you. And Terry, for me, you were always, for me, the quintessential rock star, I think, up until now. You've epitomized your personality, and what you do has really been, I think, inspiring for a whole generation of hairdressers. And then Paul, I remember I met Paul Paul and Terence, actually, when they were what we call snotty SA in Afrikaans. I'm sure you know, like these young, cocky oaks. And obviously, Paul built his business up over the years, and I think he's built up a nice, powerful business. And then Terence, what I remember about Terence is with this young guy with this thirst for knowledge. He used to always be phoning Daryl at every seminar, asking questions. You could just see he wanted to get ahead. And then I had cocky Gerald, and I remember every time I met with him, the discussion for the first half an hour used to revolve around my suits, on how I got expensive suits, so I need to be able to give them bigger discounts, because if I can afford those suits, then I should be able to afford to give them bigger discounts. So that's what I remember about you, Gerald. And it hasn't got any better since then. So that's my introduction into hairdressing, and I must say I've had a jaw. Just one little story that I can hand over to you guys. When I was in Durban, I ran discos, mobile discos for the university and the techs. I was the biggest disco then. We used to have parties in those days for about 2,000-3,000 students. And when I finished university, I was approached by a businessman in Durban that wanted to start a disco. So anyway, I got involved and we ran a club. And those were some of the best years of my life, being a 23, 24-year-old kid and working in discos, it's like a dream come true. And I remember thinking I had to grow up at some stage, and I moved up to Joburg to start my career. And I kept thinking, geez, how will I ever be able to find something that was as exhilarating and as fun as running a disco? And then I discovered hairdressing. So for me, it was an easy transition from running clubs to getting into hairdressing, because it's a similar type of industry. You know, we have fun, we inspire people, it's fashion focused. We're all crazy, fun characters. We clash sometimes, but that's part of the fun. So I've been very excited about work in this industry. So I don't know if you guys want to add to some of your early experiences. I think Gary's trying to get on, so I'm going to see if I can link him.
I think if I could, Stav, when you say clash with people, it's quite funny, because apart from yourself and Andrea and Gary, well, not Gary as well, I've clashed because it's in my personality to rub people up the wrong way, to maybe say the wrong thing, to be a little bit like too mouthy. But in saying that, look where I am now. I'm sitting with all the guys that I've rubbed up the wrong way, I've had a bit of a go with, and now we're all in the right place. Yeah, I've grown up a lot. It's been a good journey, and yeah, I'm very grateful that I can sit here with the guys, have a chat. I can remember every time that I rubbed one of you guys up the wrong way, and here we are today. So it's a good place to be.
Paul, let me tell you, you're not unique. Everybody's rubbed me up the wrong way. I think that's the whole point of business. You know, it's not just about banking money. It's about navigating conflicts, solving problems. If it was all about banking money, we'd all be rich. Not just Gerald, you know, all of us.
You know what they say about short men?
Gary, did we wake you?
Short men, big egos, arrogant little shits. Hey, Steph.
Well, Gary, do you want to just jump in here? Firstly, tell us, okay, let me guess, your alarm clock didn't go off.
One could say I got caught up. I'm sorry that I'm late.
Okay, Gary, do you want to just give us a quick introduction of who you are? I think most people know all the panelists, but obviously if you can just add something for yourself and who you are.
Well, I'm Gary Rom. Hello, Terence. And I own the brand Gary Rom Hairdressing. We have our own hair care brand, Gary Rom Hair Care. I have 11 franchises and 2 salons that I own myself, and I've been in the industry for about 32 or 33 years, and I'm not sure what else to say.
Yeah.
In a short space of time, I know that
we started speaking about. Sorry, Gary. Right. We started speaking about some of our early experiences and influences. So I'd like to start off by just saying, guys, how have you seen the industry change over the years? I think that's probably the right place to start when reviewing our nostalgic old school is cool school. So how have you seen the industry change over the years? Go.
I think from my side, we've seen it going from, I know there's still creativity involved in it, but it's all business now. It's business. We're pushing numbers, we're pushing treatments, we're pushing retail, we're pushing clients, we're pushing average dockets. But that's come from a whole host of like lots and lots of training over the years, culminating into where we are now. And I think it's very important to have that, but I think you've got to nurture the creative people in your business and allow them to grow and expand, hopefully to where we got to go. I think that's what's important for me.
Yeah, I must tell you, I think if I look at when I started my career, the industry has progressed from a job people did, and it was, people that couldn't do anything else, to a serious business. Because, and what happened is, I think firstly, retail had a big impact on the business, because hairdressers used to spend most of the time doing cuts and blow dries. And then retail started being introduced in the late 80s and early 90s. And then probably the early 90s, 91, 92, 93, color became a major part of the business. But also what happened is, the generation of hairdressers that most of you are, well, a lot of you are sitting on this webinar, they started emerging, and that changed it from just a job into a career and a serious business. And if I look at where hairdressing is now, a lot of the names that created what we understand as hairdressing today are and I mean this respectfully, more of the aging rock stars. One of the things that I found frustrating is, up until very recently, we haven't seen a new generation of hairdressers come through that can own that rock star spot. And the question I want to ask you is there place for a rock star hairdresser going forward? Or has social media changed the way people perceive hairdressers and how hairdressers perceive themselves? I think that the ego seems to, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but the ego seems to have gone out the window, and the way people interact now is different. The youngsters interact differently with social media. They interact with their own clients. They don't particularly care if the rest of the industry sees them as rock stars, as long as their clients are happy with the work that they are doing, and as long as they are happy with what they are doing.
Stav, if I can jump in there, I mean, as Foxy was saying, when we grew up, we were rock and roll at the party, we were all having fun. And as it's progressed, it's become more about business. It's about landlords being...
Sorry to interrupt you, Gerald. Is he very soft for everybody else? It's just for me.
No, it's clear.
Is it clear? Okay, sorry.
Loud and clear.
I don't know
how about Gerald?
A bit soft. What's wrong? Okay, going back to... I think the early years ahead was fun, it was party, and it was. I mean, we all created, Terry's 10 years on me, I'm maybe 10, 15 years on the rest of you guys, but it was fun, and it has lost its spark, but right in a time when I think a restart is about to be pressed for all of us. Is there youngsters coming up? It is. I mean, I look at guys like, I look at youngsters like Nick, who are coming through. There's some strong players in the industry. Obviously in my staff, but I'm not here to elaborate on my staff, but there is some players that are strong and coming back. But I think that, I think if you go back to the 70s, the rock and roll bands, the parties, it's definitely changed its mix. I never forget years ago, you talk about a retailer has come in. There was I got invited to a launch by one of the major suppliers, and they brought out a French guy, and it was just on the introduction of take-home haircare, professional haircare. And then this French guy, and he stood up there and said, "Hello, my name is Jean-Claude, and this product is magnificent, and you have no more hair." So even looked at him and said, "Well, fuck, if I'm going to use that, I'm going to have no more hair. I'm not going to use that ever." So, yeah, that was the start of retail, which, funny enough, I think Nico Domain, who's one of the legends of our industry in the early years, I think he was quite instrumental in bringing in professional hair care. But to go back to the point, I think we've got an opportunity now to press a restart button, and I think rock and roll needs to come back into hairdressing. It's a wonderful industry. It's been very good to all of us. Right now, as Terry was saying earlier, we're all at 6s and 7s. We're all floundering at sea. But I think we've got opportunity to rewrite those books, and it's interesting times ahead. It's going to, I don't know about the fun times.
Stav, I just want to pick up, if I may, on something that Foxy said. He said that everything's turning back to business, well, not turning back to business, but it's becoming more business orientated. But at the end of the day, as salon owners, we've had no choice. The margins have been shrinking over the years. 25, 30 years ago, your stock costs were probably 8% of your spend. But today they're between 18 and 20 and 28, depending on what product ranges you use. So we've had no choice. Landlords' rentals have gone up, and that has detracted from what Gerald is saying about the rockstar part of the industry. And because it's become so business orientated, we as salon owners, I mean, I remember playing golf with Gerald down at the coast on a number of occasions. He did win one game, I think. I think he won one, if I'm not mistaken, Gerald. But I remember those days. But those days have been taken away from us because we've had to become a lot more business orientated.
Terry, I would agree with you. I remember when the industry took a turn. It was in between 2009 and 2010. And that was when we had the first crisis. So I think what has happened is a lot of the oxygen has been taken out of the industry because everybody had money up until that stage. And then the crisis changed everything. It changed.
Can I come in here?
Terry?
Can I come in here?
Sure.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, going back to, I've got Gerald on my partner in crime. Going back to the 70s, I was in London. I trained with Sassoon in London. I brought back to South Africa in those days. I don't even remember whether Johannesburg was doing. We were doing I started doing cut and blows. And, you know, back in those days when you wanted to become your own boss, as Proxy said earlier on, to embrace and let these people grow and become who we wanted to be. I don't know whether I want to be in what I am today, but going back to the days, hairdressing has changed so drastically, and I've been there, as I said before, some of you were born. So I've seen a huge, huge change in hairdressing, from people coming to have their hair washed and set every week, and their perms, and, you know, being able to generate income. And I would say in those 70s and 80s, I was more flash than I've ever been in my life. And slowly, as Gary is saying, and Terence, everybody, and Gerald, it's the business side that has become so important now, how much you have to look after your business. And in my hairdressing career, I looked after the creatives, the artistics, the people that wanted to be the egos. And you guys have, it's just changed so much. People are doing, you know, they only come into the salon once every 4 to 6 or 8 weeks for a cut and blow. They're doing their hair at home. So I had those days of everybody coming to the salon to have their hair done. So that's changed dramatically. Dramatically changed with the cost of products. Hairstylists are demanding enormous percentages, which we just cannot sustain anymore. It's just not possible. There are so many things that have changed the industry. Stav asked about the rock stars. At the moment, if you think about a rock star, I think about people that are still entering hairdressing competitions. The biggest rock star in my life in hairdressing was, of course, Gerald Wells. He was the rock star of hairdressing. I mean, we all just went to Daryl for any information with retail. I thought I knew everything, but once I was in a class with Daryl, you just went away feeling so invigorated, so intense. Education, as we know, is so important, but these kids today are not, they're not really that interested. They prefer to spend time on their cell phones, not on Instagram, watching their kids at home or whatever. I know I'm being very derogatory, but I'm talking fact. The education today is not what it was in our days. We felt the importance of it, but the kids today, the young up-and-coming hairdressers aren't. There are a couple of rock stars. There's our Flo from Cape Town. Our Terenzo is still a rock star. Look at him with his hair and his outfits. And then we've got old Nick Amarunas. Old Nick, that young chap needs to be revered. He's doing well, has done well, and he's, to me, a little bit of a rock star today. So, you know, just everything has changed dramatically, and that's my little take on what's happening in hairdressing today. I think we're all battling to make a buck at the moment.
Yeah. Terry, you know, while you were talking, I can have another thought that I had. If you look at where hairdressing was, and we're talking about the rock stars now. If you look at our generation, the influences we had were very different to the influences the younger people had. I think people used to come into the hairdressing salon to get a taste of glamour. Because if you remember where media was in those days, I mean, we had SABC 1, 2, 3, and then eventually things really rocketed. We got ETV, and then we got DS.
Top billing.
Yeah, so I think, you know, glamour was really only accessible when we used to go to clubs or when we used to walk into hairdressing salons. So I remember when I used to walk into hairdressing salon and I walked out, I felt different. I think people still feel that, but a lot of that feeling, I think people get from social media and from YouTube and all the rest of it. Glamour is accessible now. You know, Kim Kardashian comes up with some weird design or wears new clothes or some new cosmetic, and we know about it immediately. You know, I spoke about my music in the 80s. I remember I was a big Queen fan, and I heard about this new Queen album that was launched in the UK, and it took 2 years to get to Ladysmith. Now it gets launched 5 minutes later. You can download it on iTunes. Any new style that happens overseas, you guys know about it immediately. You don't have to wait for international artists to come and inspire you and bring new ideas from overseas, because international seminars, we used to have 2-day seminars and we used to have 600 to 800 people. So I think social media, I'm not saying it's for better or worse, we're different. Paul?
Stav, I think the connection got a little bit lost there. I just heard you were a big queen. Could you just clarify that, please, mate?
Big queen fan.
Well, let me tell you a story. You know, in this industry, you find out about your sexuality very quickly. You're either straight or you're gay. But anyway, to cut a long story short, I remember I was convinced to have a turnabout party. We had a Twincare turnabout party. No, it was a manager's weekend away, and that's a whole different story. But to cut a long story short, I got dressed up as a girl, like you do at turnabout parties. And I remember one of the hairdressers came to me. In fact, it was Tammy. It was Kent Nichols' wife. Anyway, she came and said to me, Stan, do you have a sister? Because she looked at me all dressed up. I said, yes. And she said, shame. Because I did not look good as a girl.
Dave, can I
just getting back to where Terry was there with the knowledge and knowing what it was like being rock stars in that era and having a good time. I think if we know that, then we need to impart that on our younger guys and bring it back. And I know that we're all business, but if that's what we want and that's what we want to bring back, it's up to us as salon owners to bring it back. There's no point in having the know-how and having all the memories and then not bringing it to the fore. So you can be all business, but you've got to set aside some time for the creative and get your people involved in competitions and get them involved in hair shows and get them. So it's up to you guys, us guys, salon owners, to do that. Because it's all good and well to sit here and say, well, we know all the memories, but it's not happening. We need to make it happen.
Can I come in here for a second, please, Foxy? Talking about that, getting people involved, it's like pulling hen's teeth. I've always been involved in shows. I'm very fortunate to have won Hairstylist of the Year. I've won L'Oreal Color Trophy. Those platforms were all fabulous. But today, the costs involved when you ask and you encourage your staff to enter these competitions, they want you to foot the bill. They do not want to invest in their own future. They don't want to, or maybe not they don't want to, they can't afford to. So, where do you go from there? You try to help as much as you can, but it's like a never-ending battle.
Terry, you're 100% correct, and I just want to add something. When I look at the people on this forum, and I look at Terence, I look at yourself, I would love to fly you to Pretoria to do a 2-hour session, a styling session. I'd love to have Terence in front of my group doing cutting and styling, because that's what my group needs. But perhaps it's an opportunity now with COVID-19 for us to do these things online. If Terence can do a cut and blow dry and video it, or Paul, or Terry, you yourself, you can put that online, and we can have the opportunity to watch it. And I think we need to make use of this portal that's currently happening now. That's my 2 cents.
Tomorrow.
Can I add something? And I look back when I was a youngster, and the reason I'm wearing a floral shirt, because it reminds me of the day I walked into John Frieder's in London. I'd done my hairdressing here, I'd done my apprenticeship, and I found out I'd achieved everything I could in hairdressing in Durban, South Africa, and I wanted to be the best I could be. So on a middle of January, February, in the winter in London, I walked into the John Frieder's, Nikki Clark, and a very similar shirt to this. And I had long hair, and I looked a bit tanned and healthy and well. And I got an interview with the guy, and we sat down and we spoke, and I spent quite a bit of time at the John Frieder's salon in UK Street, London. And the shows and the shoots and the celebrities. I mean, the Rolling Stones and the Paul Weinman, Jacqueline Bissett, Brett Eklund. You interacted with rock stars. I worked with David and Elizabeth Emanuel, who made Lady Di's dress. And then from there, I shot off. I did a stint in Sydney. And then my ex-business partner, we opened a bottle store called Scotch and Wells. Hang on.
Scotch and soda. Scotch and Wells.
I think it Wells. I'm the Wells. Anyway.
He's got quite a good personality.
I came back to South Africa. The shows were happening. The DDC, the July Handicap was massive for the shows, the fashion shows. And we wanted, Terry's saying now, when you ask staff members to be involved, some of them it's always the same guys who put their hand up and say, you know what, I'll do it. Those are the guys that are the hairdressers. The other guys, apathetic, I don't want to say that because it's derogatory, but as Terry says, I think, and the other guys, everything is now on a computer, so they don't feel they need to be.
Guys,
Yeah.
you know,
You hit the nail on the head.
sometimes my staff come and say
On
to
the
me,
proverbial head, as they say.
we can't do this and we can't do that. Like we can't sell a promotion, or we can't get people to come to Hairstyles of the Year, for example. And I always say to them is, if you go to your clients, say to them, buy a ticket for the Hairstylist of the Year, and I will give you a Kruger Rand. How many of them do you think will come? Every single one. Well, the point is we're giving them value. So I think we also got to be very aware that it's all well and good us saying, you know, we've got to do this and we've got to do that. If people don't see the value, they won't want to come. So what we need to do is we need to try and adjust to see what do hairdressers want, whether it's education or whether it's inspiration or whether it's a direction that they want to take their careers. We've got to address that question, because I can tell you both Twincare and a lot of our competitors, we're having problems getting people to attend education. Again, it's because we're not offering
the nail on the head, God.
And because there's competition with online. Terence, what do you have to say, bro?
I'm on mute.
Terry, we haven't heard you today.
No, Stav, it's quite interesting what all of you are saying, and you know, it makes a lot of sense for me. I just remember I was very, very young, and I had the opportunity to go to Tony and Guy, and it was really the most exciting, fun, exhilarating time of my life. And I still remember I signed in for advanced cut and color course. You know, I was freaked out. I was walking up and down the streets. I saw stuff that I've never seen before, clothing brands, fashion. We went to clubs and pubs, and the next day we would be on it. It was a 5-day course. The very first time I went, I was super young. And not that I'm old now, I'm just talking then. So it was, for me, the fact that we could see and do stuff that we could never see in South Africa. But as the technology changed, the accessibility now with the internet and everything, you can actually get all that information right now. And I think, coming back to what you guys were saying in terms of education, I do feel that's a massive impact in how education is done at the moment, because it's so accessible on the internet. And it's so, I mean, people watch haircuts on YouTube, they watch it on Instagram, on Facebook. And I think that's got an impact on how people act and how they feel and how they spend their money. Because, you know, like a lot of stuff, we've been in industry for a long time, and we say, yes, in our days, but in our days, things were different. The internet was different, you know, so the accessibility for the stylists are different. And I think what we have to do is sit down and say, okay, cool, how do we incorporate the new mentality of technology into what we want to achieve, instead of just going back to what we did as rock stars or whatever the case is. I mean, I love that era. I remember every single thing. A quick funny story. Stavros came to me and he said to me, do you want to do this international seminar? And I said, well, okay. He says, have you done this before? I said, yeah, sure. But I've never done anything. And he says, well, let's start in Stellenbosch, because that's a small little town, and then we'll gradually work our way through up to Johannesburg. So as I go up, I feel like I'm hyperventilating because it's so stressful. I've never done anything like this. Just the lights are shining in my eyes. It wasn't a massive group. I think it was about 600 people. Anyway, I couldn't speak. I was so stressed. I didn't know where to start, what to do. Anyway, eventually I see a little girl. She's about the 3rd, 4th row from the front. She stares right at me in my eyes, and she's hanging on my lips, and she's really listening, and I'm starting to talk, and I feel, this is nothing. The confidence is building, and I'm getting really like strong in my conversation, and things are happening. And as I'm midway through my conversation, this girl looks to a friend, and I couldn't speak anymore because she wasn't listening to me. So it was, you know, I mean, we've had such amazing times. And I mean, if I just think back, the stuff, the business weekends where I stay, all the parties, all the fun, you know, there's so much we can talk about. One last quick little thing. We traveled to Zimbabwe, me and Daryl and Stav. to launch Redken those years. And Stav was getting very irritated because me and Daryl had this big conversation in the car, and we would travel at about 120, but when we look again, we would be traveling at about 90 kilometers an hour, and Stav would keep on phoning us and say, can you guys please drive faster because we're going to be late. You know, Stav's very, very dynamic and everything has to be right. Anyway, and then we go up to like 140, we catch up a bit and we slow down. Anyway, this was this argument all the way down to Zimbabwe. It was in Harare. And by the time we got there, Daryl was so pissed. He was so pissed off with Stav. He got out of the car, he took his keys and he threw it right at him, but with a lot of force. And it was really funny at that moment. I don't know if you remember, Stav.
I do. I mean, I must say, Daryl and I's relationship was like something out of this world. I mean, we got so close over the years. I'll tell you one of my memories of him. You know, I always used to make Daryl do all these weird things, and we all know about him. He's dropping his pants and walking on stage, and his education. I mean, he was really like an inspirational figure. And every time we did a seminar, we'd always be backstage. And Daryl would be on some weird outfit in his underpants, shaking his head. And he said, turn around and say to me, what we do to sell shampoo. And he used to kill ourselves laughing. I'll just tell you one more story about him very quickly. One of the first fashion weeks we did in Sandton City, I mean, we hired one of the rooms. We had this 50-meter ramp, and we had all these chairs up the side at different angles. And we were going to open the show. And the show was very simple. We invited 20 hairdressers, and they each did three models each. And we just did it like a fashion show. I think one or two of you might have been involved. So the way we decided to open the show is to, again, get Daryl in his underpants and get him to walk down the ramp. And there's a 50-meter ramp, so it's a long ramp. So anyway, Daryl was holding two balloons. I'm sure some of you might remember. It was in the Hairdresser's Journal. It became an iconic picture. So Daryl is standing backstage, and I'm on the other side calling the models so we can make sure we've got the distance between them. And I remember Craig was on the comms, and I can hear Daryl say to Craig, ask Stav what song he's going to play when I walk on. So I knew what to say to Daryl. I said to Craig, tell Daryl it's New York, New York. He used to love that song. So Craig says to him, it's New York, New York. I said, Daryl says, okay, that's great. So then what I say to Daryl is, Daryl, when I give you the go, I want you to get on stage because I want you to be on stage before I started the song. So it's blackout. I give him the go. Daryl stands in the front of the ramp, and the music starts. And I play, who let the dogs out? Who? And Daryl walked the 50-meter ramp in his underpants and the balloons. The audience saw Daryl. They used to go bananas because that personality just used to reach across to everybody. You just wanted to be around him. He was just a real genuine, fantastic guy to know. And I'm sure everybody shares that sort of experience with him.
We do.
In that era, there was also Nina. I mean, Nina had to be the number one representative. She loved us. She loved you. She loved her business. And she was passionate. There's another guy who needs to be recognized who's been, well, thank God he's still here, but Andy Kuntz. I mean, Andy is Nina personified. I mean, they both love their industry. They give 100%. And, you know, there's different dynamics to our business. Obviously, you're interviewing the rock stars or hairdressers here, which means that we're at the end of our term, because if you induct you to the Hall of Fame, I think you finish your career. Having said that, I think we also, I mean, if I look at the guys here, Foxy and Gary and Terry, we've all had the pleasure of bringing our kids into our business, which has been up and down roads for some of us and all of us. Having said that, it's a beautiful industry to come into. I mean, there's still the youth, there's still the passion, and maybe we're just living in the old days, and maybe the world has changed. You know, like we've got beautiful, happy memories. I remember Jameli and Pierre years ago, massive big hair group in KZN, and I'll never forget there was a little hairdresser called Luigi. And they had this fashion show, and every fashion show they finished off with, they had a bride walk down the ramp. And this girl came, and she was magnificent, tall and stunning, with this massive big dress and this tail behind her. And she walked to the end of the ramp, and out popped underneath the dress was Luigi, looking at all the crowd. I mean, it was just crazy, lovely, lovely times. And it's happy memories. And I think, yes, the world is changing, and I think everything is online and Zoom meetings, but I think the passion of our business it is still there. I mean, I stopped cutting hair 6 years ago, but I still walk through my shops and I see staff doing haircuts and I think, geez, that's bloody nice. You know, that really is good. And I see work, I pop in a Terry's shop or I see something Gary's put online or whatever. It's wonderful to see good hairdressing still going on.
Guys, you know what? I often say that we are fortunate to be in this industry. I mean, can you imagine imagine being a lawyer? I mean, it might look glamorous, but all you do is sit and read agreements. Imagine being an architect sitting, doing drawings all the time. I mean, it sounds glamorous. Our business is different. You know, we touch people, we speak to people, we dress like nutcases, we have parties. It's a different industry. I think we're all fortunate to be in here. But so what I want to do now is I want to try and move the conversation going forward. What do we think hairdressing is going to look like in the future? I don't want to discuss the current situation we're in and the immediate impact it's going to have, because I'd like to end off with that. But I'd just like to ask you guys, where do you think hairdressing is going? I mean, there's a lot of trends that are emerging. So if we extrapolate those trends, where do you think we're going to be in 3 or 4 years' time?
Stav, I just want to jump in quickly and say to you that you need to build on the forum here and the people that are in it. And I think you should do an industry day where you incorporate the people that are on this forum and each one has a slot and we give back to the industry through Twincare. That's number one. Number two, I think because of the COVID-19, there's no doubt that we're going to do fewer clients when we get back. So in my opinion, you're going to have more time in your salons to kill and to use productively. And for me, coming from my background, that means stronger, better, harder, faster consultation, which is going to lead to average docket value increase, because you're going to have to increase your average docket if you've got fewer clients.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think every industry has to evolve or it gets left behind. And the challenge that we've got, if we look at our age group, is to try and stay relevant both to the consumer and to the younger industry, and to the younger clients. And I can tell you my biggest wake-up call was how social media has affected everything, but more specifically our business, because that's what I care about. And I remember a few years ago, you know, people talking to me about having a presence on Facebook and being on Instagram. And most people I spoke to, they didn't really get it. And then all of a sudden, what I realized is the younger generation that were in their 20s 10 years ago are in their 30s now, and they are becoming our consumers. Now, they have grown up with social media. The people that were in their 40s and 50s that were our consumers 10 years ago are in their 60s or 70s. And those people weren't engaged with social media. So our industry has to adapt. It may well mean that the old days of doing education and calling, you know, having 600 people at seminars is gone. I'm not saying it has, but we are battling to get people there. So we have to adapt to how the young generation
interacts. If I could come in there.
Sure.
From my side, I think we need to take the opportunity now to use the platforms that we've got with the online training and all the rest of it. But I know as salon owners, and you can agree or disagree, that we tend to extend into it and then leave everybody else behind. Terry, could you keep it down, please? Thanks. And then what I'm only joking, Terry. So what happens is we tend to leave it to them, but now we need to use this opportunity to get together with them and watch the education. So they say that we're going to have less hours. So then let's dedicate some time to watch education, be educated online by the Garys, by the Geralds, by the Stavs, by the other guys around the world, and then take this opportunity to grow again with our people.
Agree, Paul, agree. Okay, so if we have to look at other emerging trends, I can tell you what I'm seeing is the line between professional and retail is going to blur. And this is where we need to be very careful as an industry. I think one of the impacts that we may have with what we're going through at the moment is more and more consumers looking at doing color at home. That's the first thing. The second thing is online retail purchase is here to stay. It's a thing. We've got no choice. The music industry try to fight it. You know, there's a lot of industries that try to fight the consumer trends. And I'll tell you a very quick story on how I try to fight a trend. When I joined in hairdressing in 91, about 92, 93, I was made a marketing manager. And I remember the first thing you do as a marketing manager, you look at trends. And I looked at the perming market. And no matter which angle I looked at, the perming market was decreasing month after month after month. So I started doing promotions, started spending money, I started doing incentives. No matter what I did, our perming sales dropped month after month after month. And then I remember going to a friend of mine who was a little bit more experienced in marketing. And I said to him, you know, what can I do? I've tried everything, but this trend is just not, the sales just not increasing. And he said to me, Steve, you know what? I'm not a hairdresser, but I can tell you what I'm seeing. He says, I don't see people with perms anymore. What I do see is people that are having color in their hair. And that's when I realized, hang on a sec, we are pushing the wrong things. Once something is out of fashion, once something is what the consumers don't want to engage in, you can't sell bell-bottom jeans when everyone's wearing slim-fitting jeans. Once the trend is out, it's out. So what we need to do as an industry, we need to try and guess where that trend is going. So there are certain things that are fixed in our industry. We are always going to cut hair because it's unlikely there's going to be machines that can cut hair. We are always going to be doing color because color is going to be something that, especially as our population starts aging, which is the trend, we're going to be doing color. Retail, there's a question mark on that. And retail in the early 90s, all the way to 2009, and even today, has become a major part of our business. If it's 20% of your business, can you imagine losing 20% of your sales if retail leaves the industry? We have to be very careful how we do it. We got to follow where the business goes. And if the business goes online, we need to have an online presence. Now, sorry, I don't mean this is a sales pitch because we have done this in response to the trends that I'm seeing. There's something that we are working on to give every salon an opportunity to have an on-salon presence, to have their own website where their consumers can buy online. We're going to launch in the next 2-3 weeks, and we're going to do a webinar to introduce it. But that's not the point. But the reason I'm telling you is that we are trying to be proactive. Each one of us has got to really look at our industry. What are the emerging trends? What is going to be relevant in the future? The minute we become irrelevant, we will go broke and we'll lose our businesses. Gary?
Oh, no, I didn't want to say, that was Terence.
Terence, sorry.
Yeah. You know, you were also talking about color, how clients would do color at home. I think what we as an industry have to focus on is our creativity in terms of color, how we apply these colors, how we bring in creative and interesting applications that's impossible for consumers to do, because often you would slap a basic shade onto the root to cover the gray, but that is something that they can do. You know, and one of the rules in our business at Terenzo is that we don't bring color charts out in front of a client, because in that space you're actually educating them on what numbering system. Because while you're talking, you know, you're talking natural undercoat, you're talking color history, you're talking all sorts of stuff, and she's listening to all of that, and they're hearing, and we training them. So what I do, I open a fashion magazine, I show her the color. I say, do you like that color? It's beautiful. I use words like that. I don't use levels in front of my clients or anything like that at all. I just use that type of visual. All my color charts are at the back from a technical point of view. And but I do believe that our color applications need to be more creative, more interesting, not just for the sake of that, but it actually does look more beautiful on the client than just slapping a basic color on with no interest in that. Then that becomes much more technical and difficult for a client to redo and copy. And I think that's the way to get them committed.
Terence, I think you're hitting the nail.
I want to jump in, Terence.
So when we do it,
Terence, I want to jump in. Sorry, and I want to say to the panel that Terence and I spent time together on that occasion. We were in Cape Town together probably about a month ago, and we spent a day or two together. Terence and I think very differently. So whilst I agree with him about the techniques that you need to use that are different, that consumers cannot do at home, my brand and the way I teach the people in my brand is we take the tube of color to the client and we mix it in front of her and we educate her as to what the color is, how it works, what is developer, how it fades the hair, and that leads to retail and so on. So, and that's the beauty of the industry, is that we are so diverse and so different, and that's why we all need to to get back to the rock star era, Stav, we've got to get together more as a group of individuals where we have brainstorming sessions together so that we can share ideas and grow the industry. So whilst Terence doesn't teach and train on numbering systems and color, we make that available to our clients and we teach and educate them. And our color business has grown. But my 2 cents about the industry going forward is we've got to work strongly on loyalty programs for our clients, because it's easy for clients to jump ship and go to another salon. We've got to work really, really hard and strongly on loyalty so that we can give them a reason to come back to us all the time. But that's the diversity, and I'm sorry I jumped in, T, but I just want to, we're so diverse and yet so alike in our thinking.
Can I add something in there?
I just want to add something to what Terence said, then we'll go to Terry, then we'll come to you, Gerald, very, very quickly. I think, I think Terence has hit an important point here. If you look at the color we've done traditionally, where it's come from, it's essentially coloring gray. That's what we've done mostly. And some, somebody a bit more quirky will want a different variation on their shade. I think the opportunity we have, especially with the younger generation coming in, is to have those kind of variations that they can't do at home. I think that's an important point. I actually watched something on YouTube the other day, and they had a new technique where they put shapes on their head and they spray color around it. Now, I want to tell you something that Tony Martin told me a few years ago, and he was speaking about avant-garde. And he said, Stav, avant-garde should be an extreme interpretation of where fashion is at a particular time. So he said to me, if bows are in fashion, the avant-garde interpretation of those bows is models should walk on with huge bows. Yeah. So avant-garde is there to exaggerate the fashion. So what I saw is he had a simple bob on a blonde girl, and he started spraying yellows and blues and all the rest of it. Now, I'm not suggesting for 1 minute you do that in your salons, but if we take that as an extreme inspiration, how do we adapt that simply that we can do it on a 30-year-old lawyer without her looking ridiculous? So I think those are the kind of things of what will differentiate our business from what is available in the retail business. That's where our real competition is. Okay, let's go to Terry, then we'll go to Gerald.
It would be remiss of me not to thank Stavros first and all the panelists for their input. I think a little bit of what's come out of this is very important to all of us. Gary's sentiments, Terence's sentiments, I have both sentiments. I think it comes down to a hairdresser's confidence as well. I think when we have a little person that can become a rock star, let's give them that confidence, make them aware of how good they are and how wonderful they are. I think going forward, we actually need to concentrate really on the committed. The ones that want to be somebody, want to be part of your team, want to be part of your program. The others, you know what? It's like flogging a dead horse. Again, what Gary said about us getting together as a forum, let's do this, let's let it happen. And we all need to join together with these shopping centers and their outrageous rentals. That's one thing that I feel going forward we need to address. Otherwise, there are going to be no hairdressing salons and shopping centers. Thanks, guys, for a wonderful, wonderful webinar this morning. I think it's amazing, and I feel very privileged to be part of it. Thanks, Dave.
We're not finished, Terry.
I'm saying thanks. Just
stop giving your
Terry's getting tired.
Stop giving your goodbye speech. We're not done.
Terry's getting tired.
At the front door. Say something.
Well, you need to say something.
Shut up, all of you. Terence, shut up. Okay, guys. Let's go back to the reality of what Stav's put together, and everyone have mentioned maybe Terenzo's a little bit different because he had the foresight to maybe go and buy a building and turn it into suites. Well done for that. But here's the thing. If anybody has changed the dynamics of retail in South Africa, it has been landlords. Now, I'm going to get shot down for this because they've continually increased their rentals from 8 to 10% per annum, and it's gone beyond inflation, which is ridiculous. On top of that, basic economics was the supply and demand. There's been a shortage of good hairdressers, maybe because some are passionate, maybe some aren't. But at the end of the day, we've created a rod for our own backs. Hairdressers, commission-wise, is unrealistic. It really is unrealistic. And then on top of that, you compound it to the rand-dollar situation, the products coming in. I think it started out at 3% was 6 or 8 rand. It's now, we won't talk prices, but you've got to charge exorbitant rates to pay your landlord, to pay the receptionist, to pay the hairdresser. Somebody was saying earlier, we've got to up our prices. Guys, you can't do that. We've got to go the other way, but we've got to go into a model that has changed. Stav has correctly said, perms look big and everything else. How this is going to turn about, time will tell, but the world we're coming back to now is totally different from anything we've experienced. The entertainment industry, the exclusive brand industry, the travel industry, the exotic, it's all gone. It's all gone. So the disposable income in the workplace is going to become less and less. So what do? Do you charge? I mean, imagine if we all charge 200 or 250 rand for a haircut. Our shops would be full. Every hairdresser would be fully booked all day, but you're paying 150 grand rental. How can you do that? You can't. So either the landlord has to buy into what we do for a living. Otherwise, we've got to take our business to the high street, which is what Terenzo has done. So how it's going to change, hairdressers, the days of 50% and nothing taken off, that's gone. That's finished. Because you will end up losing everything you've worked for. So that is going to change. It's very difficult for the suppliers to come on board and say, okay, we can give you massive discounts because, guys, the dollar is 8.9, the rand is 19 rand to the dollar. Wake up. We're in for a big surprise here. Stav and myself, obviously, we've got a business together. We talk all the time. We're in for a challenging time. I think the passion's got to come back, but I think landlords have to buy into it. They have to buy into it. And our suppliers have, so we're in this road together, and it's something we've got to walk together. And I think it's going to be a changing world. I'm waffling on a bit, which I'm good at doing. But at the end of the day, just to reiterate, I think we're coming back to a world that's different from anything we've experienced.
Stav, if I could come in there for a second. Yeah, so I've set up a meeting with my guys to discuss a few things, and I'd like to share it if you don't mind. It'll take me 2 seconds. I want to discuss with my guys landlords. I want to discuss with my guys deals going forward. I want to discuss client fee. I want to discuss retail sales. I want to discuss no income at the present. So we need to take all these things and be mindful of it. I want to take into the overdrafts that we got at the moment, the government loans, the hair at home. Because last night I had a guy posting saying he's doing hair at home, quoting Paul James hairdressing. Fortunately enough, I got somebody to contact me immediately. I got to take it down. But we're up against all these adverse situations right now, and we need to be mindful of them. The other thing that was about the expenses going forward with regards to sanitation. You're talking about shields, you're talking about masks, you're talking about gloves, you're talking about sanitation, the sprays. So now we're sitting in a place where we don't have enough money. We don't have enough money, but at the same time, we're needing to spend money. Yeah. So I think I like what everybody's been saying. I've had some great advice from you, Stav, and from Carlos. At the beginning of all of this, we were shitting ourselves. And now, you guys said, sit back and let it all happen. And I'm not that kind of guy, but it was the best advice you could give. And then it gave me time to clear my mind, think about the most important things in my business, and then plan going forward. Everything we're talking about is great, and I get it. About the education, about the kids coming through, about the rock stars. But without a business right now, you don't have any of that. So let's focus on our business, then focus on the good things that are going to come, because it's going to come. We'll make it come. You don't get to where you guys are without making it happen. So you can make it happen again. Yeah, it might not be at the same degree. Yeah, there might be less clients, but we're going to up our average dockets. So it's about the energy, it's about the drive, it's about the charisma that you all bring to the party. But there's certain things that we've got to focus on right now. And I've just mentioned some of them. You're talking about big commissions and all the rest of it. It's all got to change. But we've got to give, us salon owners, and they've got to give. But at the moment, all we want to do is save our business. Nearly done. Got to save our businesses and then worry about going forward.
I agree, Paul. So I think let's just move the conversation on where we are now. So I just want to summarize what's happened the last couple of weeks. I think a lot of the people on this webinar have been involved. I've had some great support from Chris from Wella, and Tresor from L'Oreal, and a lot of the other suppliers. So what we did, like we spoke about last Saturday, is we did a submission to government. And the submission was focused on the fact that we employ roughly, that's hair and beauty, about 280,000 people in the industry. And the point we made across is we need to open because our industry provides so much employment. And it got us nowhere, as you know. And I think we possibly had to put that argument in, but maybe that was the wrong angle to take it. And I think some of you might have seen that post I did over the last couple of days. Yes. And that is that we've got something different in our industry. Not only is it an industry that provides work for people, but it's also an industry that makes people feel better. And where we are at the moment as a society, hairdressing can make a big difference in the way people think about themselves. And you know, getting out of that house and coming in and scandling and joking, like my little meme said. But I think what we need to do is we're going to try and get the government to understand where our industry is from a sanitation point of view. I think if you're a government official that has to decide, sitting at your desk, you get a submission that, you know, we're going to have 280,000 people unemployed. They'll say, okay, we get that. We don't want anybody unemployed. But here we've got the construction industry. We've got 2 million people unemployed. So that's not really an argument that will resonate with the government. The points we need to make is, as an industry, we are naturally focused on hygiene. We sanitize our equipment. We wash hair, so our hands naturally get washed and cleaned. You know, we sanitize our brushes, we clean our brushes. And what we are proposing is to take it one step further, to bring in the face masks, bring in the visors, bring in all those things. So we need to try and change their minds from being a high-risk industry, because we sit there like we used to, cutting hair and breathing on people, to introducing new sanitary measures that will limit the risk of getting our sick or getting our staff sick.
Staff, as you know, the employers have put in a submission now, and it's been granted. They're going to have a chat with the minister with regards to it, and it's based around exactly what you're talking about. Correct. I think you're right. It's the mental health of people that we work with as well, but we need to be mindful of sanitation, and then of course the jobs and the earnings and what we bring to the GDP of the country. So, but just from our side on the employers, the union involved, the bargaining council's involved, and the employers involved, and it's gone through to government. I did share it with you last night, and I shared it with some of the other guys. So hopefully, let's hope it comes through. But we won't stop trying. We'll continue to keep trying because the love that we've got for our industry.
I can tell you one of the negative things was said because we are pushing to open up the industry, and they were saying, you know, how can you guys put your staff at risk and consumers at risk? Guys, it's not about that. We don't want to put anybody at risk. By asking for our industry to open, we are not saying that we want to open and risk our staff. What we're saying is, us, like any other industry, all the industries want to open, but we are in our industry, so we have to put our case forward. And we put our case forward in a way that we can say we will address the issues and the concerns that government has, which are real issues. They're not government issues, they're social issues. This virus affects every single one of us. So not for 1 minute are we suggesting that we're going to be reckless and go and just get our staff in regardless of what happens. We're not saying that. And I must say that the Sorbet group have really unfairly got a bit of bad press, which is what they said to them. And that for me is unfair. I mean, for anybody to intimate that we are being reckless to try and open our industry is just unacceptable. And I've had a couple of emails as well, people saying to me, Stav, you know, we're not doing that. The virus is putting us all at risk. It's not something we are choosing to do, and what we're going to do, we want to do intelligently and responsibly. That's all we're saying.
Exactly. I totally agree with that, Stav. We're going to be responsible in opening our salons. I think a lot of and please, I could get shot down for this, but the informal business is where a lot of the problems lie at the moment. And a lot of those businesses are trading right now. We're not getting the opportunity to do that. Give us the opportunity to open our businesses. We'll sanitize, we'll run them properly. If there is a problem with the staff, we'll deal with it accordingly. If there is a problem with a client, we'll deal with it accordingly. But give us the opportunity to run our business.
100%.
I also think that the government is putting the beauty industry and the hairdressing industry and the nail industry, makeup, everything all into one bag. They can't seem to separate it nicely. And I think something that could help us a lot is if we separate ourselves as hairdressing specifically, not connected to any other part of the beauty industry, so that we can communicate to them.
It's going to be hard.
Because I think that's where the problem lies. If you think of someone that massages someone, they're massaging the whole body, they're touching them the whole time. Whereas for us, I think it's a little bit different. That's just my take on that.
Yeah,
If you look at the hair salons around the world, guys, hair salons around the world have opened before beauty. So Stav, you need to make that information known to the government through some forum, or perhaps Paul through the employers organization.
We have, I'm not sure I agree 100%. We both touch clients, we can both cough over clients. I think each of the two industries, and in beauty, I think face masks have been around for a little bit longer. Anyway, maybe that's the wrong debate to have now. What I'd like to end off now is say, what are we going to do in the short term? And, you know, I think we need to try and get some turnover in. And we are fortunate as an industry because they have relaxed the products that may be sold. So our shampoos, our conditioners, our moisturizers, and our cleansers can legally be sold, and styling aids from the 1st of May. So what we need to do is find a way to try and fulfill the demand there is for retail, because if you can bring in another $1 or $2 grand a week, it's $8 grand a month, at least you can pay for your up and rush or whatever. So I think, you know, what we've done and a lot of our competitors have done is we've provided an opportunity for the industry to sell to their consumers, and we'll do more as the same thing. So hairdressing salons should get hold of the consumers. You should be getting hold of your consumers anyway to maintain the contact, and you should be asking them, do you need any products? We can deliver them to your door. And what most suppliers are doing is you are collecting the money at retail as a hairdresser or beauty therapist. You are selling, you are placing the order with your supplier, and your supplier is delivering, you're paying your supplier, and then the supplier is delivering free of charge to your consumer. So, you know, all you need to do is to sell 2 or 3 products a day, or even 4 or 5 a week, and you can get a bit of income ticking over. We've got to do something. Then the next thing is we are coming up with an online site that we think will help the industry. You know, you cannot ignore online. The industry is going to go there, and with the situation we find ourselves now, it's going to be something that everyone's going to focus on. Because consumers, you know, you get people that are scared and people that are not scared. Certain consumers will not leave their home. Certain consumers will walk past your salon, see how full it is, and choose whether they're going to walk in or out. And some people don't care. So all you need is to lose 20% of your consumers that are just scared to come to your salon, 10% of your retail. You've got a different business. So we have to prepare for a different environment when you go. And now is the time we need to start thinking about it. Now is the time we're going to experiment. Gerald, are you going to play us a ditty?
I'm going to busk. I'm going to play Knocking on Heaven's Door, because I think we're going there soon.
just before he starts playing, I think what's really important for us, and I agree with everything you've said 100% in terms of the online store, and I wanted to say thank you for creating this platform for all of us. And it's fantastic. It's 100% where it's going. But I think what's very, very important, and maybe even more important for all of us to think about, is that we're going back to a brand new world. It's not going to be the same. When we go back to our salons, we're going to have to think of a very different business, a very different life. Consumer behavior is going to be different. Clients are going to act differently. Our stylists are going to act differently. People that are entering into the industry are going to be different. And I think we're going to have to sit down and design our own new businesses for ourselves. I mean, Gary touched on it. I mean, we are actually mates. And what we find quite unique, whenever we spend time together, we exactly the opposite in business. Everything he does in the one way, I do exactly in the opposite way. And we see each other's viewpoint, and that's amazing. So what I'm saying, everything doesn't have to be the sweet concept that I'm running at all. That's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is I think all of us have to sit down in a very serious way and ask yourself, how are you going to operate in this brand new environment? Because if you are going to do exactly what you've done 2 years ago or even 6 months ago, I think it's going to be tough to run a successful business like that. I think a successful business for the future is going to be run in a way where you take the brand new environment and say, okay, right, these are the facts. This is the situation we are in. How are we going to turn this around to make it successful for us again? If you look at shopping centers, per square meter, they charged you a top dollar rate 20 years ago, 30 years ago, top dollar, high price. Today, but in those years, you pay top dollar, but you had 14 people that walked past your store. All 14 people were potential clients. Today, you're still paying top dollar even more, but if 14 people walk past your salon, maybe 3 or 4 people are potential clients. So the actual potential clients that are able to become clients in your salon is lower down, but you're still paying the high price. And I think from that point of view, for me, I feel the stress for shopping center hairdressing salon owners. And yeah, my point is, I think we should sit down and say, how are we going to go forward in this brand new environment? Because we cannot continue exactly in the way we continued before. And because our expenses are catching up to us from rentals, stock, staff salaries, everything's going nuts. And it's quite tough for salon owners to do this in the old traditional way.
Can I add to that? That's what Terenzo is saying there, and I think I speak for maybe the other guys on the panel here as well, because most of us are in shopping centers. But maybe 50% of the hairdressing salons are in shopping centers throughout SA. And as we know, we're coming back to a very different world. Beyond that, they've now told you 1 client per hairdresser and a social distancing of 2 meters. I don't know if you've got to cut the client's hair from 2 meters away, because that'll be interesting. But I'm assuming you've got to take a chair out in each shop. So the landlord, while I've been interacting with some of my landlords, some have been very sympathetic to our cause and are prepared to listen to us. Others are not interested, because right now I'm sure they're also concerned what's going to happen. But if the model continues paying rentals we paid in the past, salons, they're going to fail. It's economics.
Absolutely.
You're going to be doing a third of your turnover at best, maybe half. Let's not be too pessimistic here. But at the end of the day, if the landlord doesn't buy into the guys that are in shopping centers, then we've got a big problem. And I think I speak for a lot of salons throughout SA.
Guys,
The only way to go forward is turnover clause. It's the only way to go forward.
100% correct. But you know what they turn around and say to you? But the guy next door is paying, I don't know, $2,000 a square meter. Compare apple with an apple, because if you can't compare the guy selling a diamond,
well,
the guy
we're service, we work on commission. The guy next door, he just gets paid, he pays his employee a salary, just a salary. We pay on commission. So, you know what, and I get that and I accept that, Gerald, but you know, I'm not very cool with the landlords. What we got to do is we just got to stand fast, and you just got to batter it in. It's got to be 5 to 10% of turnover. It's going to be a hard one, and it's going to be a bitter pill for them to swallow, but they got to swallow it. Otherwise, what do they want us to do? They want us to keep us there for 6 months, put us in a hole, and then we leave anyway. It's the only way to go forward.
Well, that's exactly right. I don't think the landlords are they have to conform. Others they're going to lose businesses.
Yeah.
So, I don't want to tell you what again. I don't want to give people the wrong advice, but I think this is the time to dig in, because again, if the business is profitable, I think none of us. I mean, we all love the industry, but all of us have to feed our families. All of us have got bonds to pay, and so we're not going to be there for the landlords. What I said last Saturday, and this is going to be a little bit controversial, but I must say I got some very positive emails about this. And that is that some salons, respectfully, should not be in business. Not because they're bad salons, but because their financial structure is wrong. I've had 1 or 2 salons that send me their financials. I've been looking at financials now for the last 3 or 4 days for different salons. And I can tell you the trend I saw. They are all working to break even. So you've got a hairdresser that's running a salon, and they're taking home, let's say, 30, 40 grand. But then every year they're losing 20 grand a month. And if you add that up, you are working to pay for the landlord and to subsidize your staff's income. If you are that level of hairdresser, it may be an option for you to stop bleeding, to stop suffering, stop having to fight your staff to be there on time, stop the training and having to carry stock and your suppliers phoning you for money, close your salon down and go work for the salon down the road where you will both make more money. Because if you have to take half the salons, and let's say, I don't know, I'm picking figures here. Let's assume the shopping center business, as a group, as an industry, we're paying the shopping centers, let's say 200 million. If we close half our salons down in shopping centers, and we take that 100 million that we are paying as rent and put it back into our industry, we'll be in a different place. At some stage, you have to give up your ego and say, do I really need to have this shop? Is my shop even profitable? Can't I make more money by working for somebody else and having less stress? Those are the questions you got to ask, or you got to answer yourself. But that is the question we should be asking, because I can tell you, every panelist here and everybody listening to this webinar, I know exactly what we're saying when we say we are going back to a different world. It'll be a different industry, a different everything. But anyway, I want to start winding this down. So what I do want to end off by saying is that, you know, I wanted this webinar to be very different to the one we had last Saturday, and I think it is. We want this to be a little bit more fun, a little bit more nostalgic. I don't want to have webinars for the sake of having webinars. So what I'd like to do is, if anybody's got any ideas of the kind of things you think we could cover, if you can just send me an email, and my email is stav@twincare.co.za. It's very easy. Send us an email. I'm not saying we will do it, but we'll consider it. Because again, I want to do these webinars if they're necessary, not for us to do one every 2 or 3 weeks. I think people just get, you know, they get overexposed and people lose interest. So one of the webinars we are going to be doing, I'm sorry, this is from a Twincare perspective, but it is a Twincare webinar. We are going to be doing a webinar online. We're going to present our idea and we're going to present other alternatives. We will let you know. We've got everybody's email addresses. If this is the first time you've entered, or you've joined our webinar, you can send me an email requesting for that. If you've already sent a request to join this webinar or last Saturday, we'll send it to you automatically. So don't resend unless unless you haven't sent one before. So guys, in closing, I'd like to thank everybody. I think for me it was fun and it was insightful. I hope the people that have been watching this have learned something and can add a little bit of value to their business. As we said, this is recorded and we will put it onto the
YouTube.
Thank you. It'll be under Twitter. YouTube. There's a lot of things on there. So guys, thank you very much. You know, I get phone calls from all of you 2-3 times a day. So we'll keep communicating. And I'd like to wish the industry well. I hope you guys got some value out of it because I definitely enjoyed it.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the platform. It's been amazing. I really appreciate it. And I also appreciate all your help and answering all my questions and supporting me and our team. Thank you very much.
Stav, just a question in finalizing. Do we build Twincare or Stav? Who do we build?
Oh, you full of shit.
Weren't you going to pay me up front? I thought you were going to pay me up front. You said the money's in my bank.
I remember you and me on travels, but best you pay.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for
Thanks,
your time.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody out there
Terence.
as well. Thank you. Nice being around, everybody. Thanks for that.
Thanks, Gary, Paul.
Yes, and thanks to everybody that joined.
Terence,
Thank you, everybody. Amazing.
Cheers, mate. Bye-bye.
Yes. Bye.